The statistic is that if you're going to try and raise venture money, 99% of the chance is you won't get venture money. So 99% of the founders in Silicon Valley are not able to raise money, be it seed or venture, a Series A or Series B for their venture. The thing I love about Silicon Valley is everybody thinks they're a part of the 1%. That's great confidence, but that's just an unfortunate statistic. And out of the 1% that do manage to raise a seed round or a venture round, eventually over the life of the company, less than 5% of the founders will see a financial return for themselves. If you talk to any investor today, they have this concept of a 20x or a 30x return. There's one outlier that pays for 29 failures. So again, I'll repeat the math. Less than 1% of the founders raise money. That's 1 in 100. And less than 5% of those 1%, that is less than 5 out of 10,000 of the founders will actually see a financial return for themselves after running that company for 5, 7, 8, 10 years, be it in the form of an exit or an IPO. Silicon Valley calls this the power law. At the Agentic, we like to call this model billionaire or broke, basically. That's what this model has become. Now, at the Agentic, we're a 3-year-old company, close to 120 people right now. We build large language models and agentic platforms. And we've been running this program, which we call the Launchpad. So we work with founders who are not necessarily engineers and coders, but they come from domains like life sciences, cybersecurity, distributed systems, chemistry, and we work with them to help build an AI product at zero financial risk to them. And what we've seen, we work with more than 60 plus startups, and what we've seen is a new kind of model emerging, and we like to call it the lean vertical AI startup. It's a slightly different way of how you look at building your AI companies, where we think, of course, it's too early to tell. We've been running this program only for the past 8 months or so, but our sense is 50 to 70 out of 100 founders will see the same outcome that 5 out of 10,000 founders see in the world of AI. And again, I'm not talking outliers. There'll always be outliers like Facebook and Cursor and the Lovables. It's great to be excited about them, but I'm in my 40s. I like some more predictability. I automatically don't assume I'm an outlier. So what I'm talking about today is not a prescription. It's certain observations we've seen working with a variety of startups. Out of the 60 plus startups, we started this program only 7 months back. We have seen some startups, actually to be precise, 6 of them, go from idea to product to more than $1 million ARR with a founder or a co-founder or 2 co-founders in industries like legal and life sciences, which are generally very difficult industries to sell into. So what I'm going to talk about today is a methodology of how you can look at building an AI startup that you wish to build, which is very different from what the conventional wisdom is. So yeah, we run this program called the Launchpad, where we work with founders to build the AI product. We take the financial risk of building it. We take no equity. You only pay us back if and when you're able to raise a seed round or a venture round for a company. Of course, I won't talk much about this program right now. If you're interested, you can come and meet me later. So basically, yeah, we all know AI agents, or vertical AI agents are a huge opportunity. It's going to be potentially a $2 to $3 trillion opportunity. Now, whether that happens over 5 years, 10 years, 3 years, I don't know that. And it's going to create 10 times more companies, 10 times more founders, and it's a 10x bigger market. Now, the few trends that we observe here that are enabling building an AI startup very differently from way SaaS startups were created. And the biggest factors are that what we're seeing is the revenue per customer is a lot more, which means you spend your customer acquisition cost as a percentage of revenue is at a lot lower. And what we're seeing here is the bottleneck is not engineering. The bottleneck is not the product. The bottleneck essentially is founder talent. There's something called context, which is becoming the biggest bottleneck for these companies to scale, and that allows for a lot of entrepreneurs to play in this ecosystem. I'll come back to this slide again, but while most AI startups that I see today they're building AI, but their business model is more like a software company. And again, let me clarify, this framework that I speak about is relevant for people building vertical AI software. It doesn't work for robotics, doesn't work for infrastructure, doesn't work for chip design. Those companies still need a lot of capital to go and build a product. But this is very much if you're looking at building applied AI companies in verticals like life sciences, like aerospace, like legal or finance. What we feel is basically the business models will dramatically change, and we're seeing some interesting startups, which I'll cover, which have different business models than just selling software. Now, in the classical world of SaaS, what you did was you did a seed raise, you built a product, then you did a Series A raise, get your initial set of customers, you go through a Series B, Series D, Series E, Series F, and as a founder, you're down to only 3 or 5% of your company. In the world of AI, that timeline is getting crunched dramatically. We're seeing founders building a product without putting any capital, getting to initial customers without raising any capital. And again, I'm not talking the outliers like Cursor and all. I'm talking of, we have a founder in San Diego working in the pharma regulatory compliance space. You can imagine how boring and difficult it is to sell into that market. They are doing more than $1.5 million in ARR in less than 7 months of starting the product with just 2 people. So this is a case where you build your product, get your initial customers, and then decide if you want to do a raise because you see the opportunity to scale your company. Right? This also means not everything needs to be a $1 billion TAM. You could play in markets which could be a $25 and a $50 million TAM and own that market completely with very, very high profitability. Now, this approach, of course, rethinks completely how you build a tech company. Again, I won't spend much time on this slide. So first and foremost, SaaS business models or software business models work for AI agents, but that's a very limited way of looking at that problem. I think the 3 big opportunities here is custom software and what we call agentic process outsourcing and agentic-based innovation. And I'll come to what I mean by that. First and foremost, it looks like, and the success of Palantir talks about, the recent attention on Palantir talks about it, that we are most likely moving back to a world where customers want custom software because that generates an alpha. In the world of SaaS, you spend 9 to 15 months building a product, and then you build your product in a way where you can customize it for a few customers, and or some parameters you can tweak, but that's all the customization you had. In the world of AI, you're building a product much quicker, and then customizing a lot more per customer, but you're using AI-based tools to make that customization more and more manageable. And customers are asking for that because SaaS is fundamentally a lowest common denominator. With AI, customers want you to create alpha for them. I don't want something standard. I want something which is an alpha, which creates an alpha for me. There's one founder I'll call out. David, could you raise your hand, please? So David is a founder we worked with him to build a legal tech a product where the approach is we take a legal reasoning engine that's built, but we build custom AI for every law firm, including leveraging their past data that they have. Again, and if you think this is for big law firms, we're seeing the most success in 2-person law firms. 2-person law firms paying David $30,000 a year or more for building custom legal AI. And if you talk to him about his CAC, when he told me his number, I fell off my chair, basically. Another interesting space we see is what we call agentic process outsourcing. Now, this is not the business process outsourcing where stuff goes to Philippines or India, and it's all about using offshore labor instead of labor in the US. This is high-end outsourcing, where you're using agents, and you're using very, very high-end specialized talent to deliver a very different outcome for your customer. Let me give an example. So we work with a semiconductor company. Again, these people have worked in Intel for years. And now any semiconductor company, verification and testing is probably one of the most complex aspects of semiconductors, cycles. And generally that process is outsourced to third parties. We have 40, 50, 60, 100 engineers that will work on the verification and testing problem. They essentially flipped the model on its head. They said, okay, we'll build AI agents, but rather than having mid-level offshore engineers do the testing and verification, we're going to use experienced Silicon Valley hands with AI agents to do this. Now, can AI agents do all of it? No. I don't think the AI agents will get to a point where they can completely do this all by themselves. This needs human ability. But what are they providing to a customer? Normally, a cycle like this is about 1.5 to 2 years. They bring that time down to 4 to 5 months, and they're charging the customer the same amount of money. But the value to the semiconductor company is faster time to market. Your chip is going to come out a year earlier, okay, with a lot less error. Every industry is going to get reshaped with AI. Okay, and if you think that what I'm talking about is for simple applications like sales and marketing, think again. Luke, could you stand up, please? So Luke is a founder you should meet. He's got a pod. So Luke is working on a biotech startup where in less than 6 months he has a product. He's got his first pharma partnership. Of course, what he does is beyond my pay grade, but this is what he told me. He says he uses AI agents to synthesize and create antibodies and essentially make the antibody screening process dramatically quicker. Of course, go and talk to him. This is all I could understand from what he does. But this is a case where he's reshaping the drug discovery industry through an innovation process which traditionally would have meant millions of dollars in a wet lab. That wet lab cost is substantially reduced. What would have been a 3-year time to build a startup is now a 6-month time to build a startup. And if you think that Luke has hundreds of people working for him, it's himself and a partner, that's it. And this means you're not even talking of reshaping software, you're reshaping every industry out there on the earth. I think barring real estate, because that's a bit more harder to reshape, basically. And the nice part of this approach is, and what this relies on, why one can build it lean, is because fundamentally, you can incrementally build. In software, or in the world of SaaS, when you build, you think, okay, I want to sell to 1,000 customers, think through all of what they would need, and then start building your product. You take 9, 10, 12, 15 months of building your product. Your product is your point of completion. And I'm going to repeat what I mean here. In the world of SaaS or software, your product is a point of completion. In the world of vertical AI, your product is a point of learning. It teaches you enough. It shows your customer what is possible, but then you're essentially customizing or adding human services to complete that into an offering your customers are willing to pay for. Customers are paying you for an outcome. They couldn't care a damn about what the software costs or what the software does. And that's where the huge opportunity, that's where it's not a hundreds of billions opportunity, that's where it's a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity, because you're reshaping an outcome. Luke is basically cutting down drug discovery times massively. The semiconductor startup you're talking about is cutting down chip release times by 18 months. That's huge in the industry that you're working on. Do they care about software? No. For them, they care about the outcome. So long as you can prove the outcome works, they'll pay you a lot of money for that. I'll skip all of this, and I'll come to one aspect of the slide. I spoke about the power law, right? Now, if you're a founder or wanting to be a founder, you should think about an exit. And especially if you're going to take investor money, be it a seed investor or a venture investor, okay, there's no investor who's going to come in, invest in your company if you do not have a clear path to an exit. Now, the exit could be an IPO, the exit could be an acquisition. Again, classically, what's happened with the power law is the top 5% of startups succeed. It doesn't mean the rest of them are bad. The way we have seen is 70% of them are really good, except they can't become $100, $200 million companies. They'll be good, great 5, 10, 15, $20 million companies. Now, I know private equity is a real bad word in Silicon Valley. I built my first startup back in 2003, bootstrapped it and sold it to a private equity firm for more than 9 digits, completely bootstrapped. And what we are seeing right now is a trend where essentially private equity, there's what we call roll-up private equity coming. You build your own startup, you take it to a certain point of revenue. At that point of time, you decide whether you want to take venture money and go for what I call the billionaire or broke model, where you try to build into a massive company, or you say, no, I've built this company into $1 million or $2 million company. I own all the equity, or I own most of the equity, and essentially I can basically get an 8, 10, 20, 15, $20 million exit for what I've built. How many people here are familiar with this company called Constellation Software? Anybody? Okay, so Constellation Software is a company that does about $11 billion a year in revenue with a $2 billion EBITDA, almost a $90 billion market cap. They were started in 1995 with $25 million in capital, and what they do is, using that capital, they ended up buying more than 1,000 small software companies between 1 and 10 million in revenue. That's what they ended up doing. They didn't build a cool product. They were the reverse of cool. They took these companies who were building very specific different verticals and just went and bought them out one by one by one by one and used those cash flows to buy more companies. Today, it's one of the most successful enterprise software companies out there in the world. Now, normally in the world of software, you would see this timeline being 5 to 7 to 10 years before you built a company, took it to 4 or 5 million in revenue, and then maybe sold it to 15, 20 million. In the world of AI, that timeline of 5 years is sort of shrinking to almost 1 to 2 years. We are starting to see some founders we work with where product to 1 million ARR is 6 to 8 months, 1 million ARR to 3 million ARR is another 4 months, and they would be candidates to be acquired if they wish to sell, okay, in a 12 to 18 month period. And that's what the whole idea behind the lean vertical AI startup is, that not 5% of the founders don't succeed. In this particular model, more than 70% of founders do see a great financial outcome for themselves. Now, does everybody become a billionaire? Hell no. Does everybody become a Mark Zuckerberg or Cursor? Hell no. But I guess there's something in between being a Mark Zuckerberg and being homeless. There's a huge continuum of what you can do as a founder. So with that, I'll stop. Thank you so much for coming for my presentation. If you wish to meet me, just walk straight. I'm right on the right corner. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Akash. Round of applause. Great job, brother. Appreciate that. All right.